大家好，我是张书春。今天我们的话题是碳水化合物。相信很多人对碳水化合物都不陌生。那么，什么是碳水化合物？碳水化合物对人体健康有什么影响？首先，我们来看 TED 制作的一个公共教育视频。
Which of these has the least carbohydrates? This roll of bread, this bowl of rice, or this can of soda? It's a trick question. Although they may differ in fats, vitamins, and other nutritional content, when it comes to carbs, they're pretty much the same. So what exactly does that mean for your diet? First of all, carbohydrate is the nutritional category for sugars and molecules that your body breaks down to make sugars. Carbohydrates can be simple or complex, depending on their structure. This is a simple sugar, or monosaccharide. Glucose, fructose, and galactose are all simple sugars. Link two of them together, and you've got a disaccharide, lactose, maltose, or sucrose. Complex carbohydrates, on the other hand, have 3 or more simple sugars strung together. Complex carbohydrates with 3 to 10 linked sugars are oligosaccharides. Those with more than 10 are polysaccharides. During digestion, your body breaks down those complex carbohydrates into their monosaccharide building blocks, which your cells can use for energy. So when you eat any carbohydrate-rich food, the sugar level in your blood, normally about a teaspoon, goes up, but your digestive tract doesn't respond to all carbohydrates the same. Consider starch and fiber, both polysaccharides, both derived from plants, both composed of hundreds to thousands of monosaccharides joined together, but they're joined together differently, and that changes the effect they have on your body. In starches, which plants mostly store for energy in roots and seeds, glucose molecules are joined together by alpha linkages, most of which can be easily cleaved by enzymes in your digestive tract. But in fiber, the bonds between monosaccharide molecules are beta bonds, which your body can't break down. Fiber can also trap some starches, preventing them from being cleaved, resulting in something called resistant starch. So foods high in starch, like crackers and white bread, are digested easily, quickly releasing a whole bunch of glucose into your blood, exactly what would happen if you drank something high in glucose, like soda. These foods have a high glycemic index, the amount that a particular food raises the sugar level in your blood. Soda and white bread have a similar glycemic index because they have a similar effect on your blood sugar. But when you eat foods high in fiber, like vegetables, fruits, and whole grains, those indigestible beta bonds slow the release of glucose into the blood. Those foods have a lower glycemic index, and foods like eggs, cheese, and meats have the lowest glycemic index. When sugar moves from the digestive tract to the bloodstream, your body kicks into action to transfer it into your tissues, where it can be processed and used for energy. Insulin, a hormone synthesized in the pancreas, is one of the body's main tools for sugar management. When you eat and your blood sugar rises, insulin is secreted into the blood. It prompts your muscle and fat cells to let glucose in and jumpstarts the conversion of sugar to energy. The degree to which a unit of insulin lowers the blood sugar helps us understand something called insulin sensitivity. The more a given unit of insulin lowers blood sugar, the more sensitive you are to insulin. If insulin sensitivity goes down, that's known as insulin resistance. The pancreas still sends out insulin, but cells, especially muscle cells, are less and less responsive to it. So blood sugar fails to decrease, and blood insulin continues to rise. Chronically consuming a lot of carbohydrates may lead to insulin resistance, and many scientists believe that insulin resistance leads to a serious condition called metabolic syndrome. That involves a constellation of symptoms, including high blood sugar, increased waist circumference, and high blood pressure. It increases the risk of developing conditions like cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And its prevalence is rapidly increasing all over the world. As much as 32% of the population in the US has metabolic syndrome. So let's get back to your diet. Whether your food tastes sweet or not, sugar is sugar, and too many carbs can be a problem. So maybe you'll want to take a pass on that pasta, sushi roll, pita burrito, donut burger sandwich.
广义的碳水化合物分为两种，一种在人体内部不能被分解，还有一种在人体内部可以被分解。为了便于理解，营养学界把在人体内部不能被分解的碳水化合物叫做纤维素。纤维素对人体健康有非常重要的作用。关于纤维素的内容，我们以后再做解释。通常，我们把在人体内部能够分解的碳水化合物称为碳水化合物，所以以后我们提到的碳水化合物都是指可以在人体内部分解的碳水化合物。天然食物中的碳水化合物几乎都是复合的碳水化合物，也叫多聚糖，简称多糖。多糖在人体内部最终会分解为单糖。单糖只有3种：葡萄糖、果糖和半乳糖。半乳糖由乳糖分解而成，乳糖主要来源于奶制品。由于人类的能量来源主要是依靠葡萄糖，所以含有大量乳糖的牛奶和奶制品并不是适合人体的最佳食物。对奶制品感兴趣的朋友们，可以参考关于奶制品的重要信息这个视频。果糖只能在肝脏中代谢，大量摄入果糖会增加肝脏负担，导致肝脏中毒，出现非酒精性脂肪肝，并且导致胰岛素抵抗和其他很多严重的代谢疾病。关于果糖的更多内容，请参考《肥胖的秘密》这个视频。最后一种单糖是葡萄糖。葡萄糖是自然界分布最广，也是最重要的单糖，是细胞的能量来源和新陈代谢的中间产物。葡萄糖是身体能量的主要来源，所以经常运动或者高体力劳动者需要摄入大量的碳水化合物来补充能量。对于这些人来说，碳水化合物是经济实惠的能量来源。葡萄糖也能够直接给脑部功能，所以脑力劳动者，尤其是搞创作的人，对碳水化合物的需求量也比较高。但是人的运动量、体力活动和脑力活动会随着年纪的增加而下降。与此同时，人的新陈代谢能力也在下降。如果还是维持高水平的碳水化合物摄入量，就很容易出现各种慢性疾病。
Whether your food tastes sweet or not, sugar is sugar, and too many carbs can be a problem.
无论是什么样的碳水化合物，或者是什么样的单糖，进入人体之后，都会出现一个结果，就是导致血糖的上升。人体有非常强大的自我调节能力，血糖上升是一个非常危险的信号，于是就需要胰岛素的干预来降低血糖的浓度。如果胰岛素的干预比较顺利，糖就会被转化为能量，或者成为糖原储存起来。也有部分会转化成为脂肪。如果摄入的糖太多，胰岛素分解糖的速度低于糖摄入的速度，就会有大量的糖残留在血液里面。这就是我们通常所说的胰岛素抵抗，也就出现了高血糖。糖分留在血液中，对身体会造成哪些影响？首当其冲的是血管。
So let's talk about what sugar does to your arteries. And probably the biggest damage from high amounts of sugar in the blood with the diabetic is done to your vascular system. And I want to talk about what occurs in that state. So you have two things. You have the macrovascular system and the microvascular system. So the large vessels and then the small capillaries. In the large vessels, you have the coronary artery. That's the artery that supplies the heart muscle, okay? And then you also have peripheral arteries throughout your body. And then you have the microvascular system, which goes to the retina of the eye. Or the kidney. If you think about it, what does the kidney do? It filters your blood. So you have the entire vascular system that gets filtered through the kidney. So you have a lot of capillaries in the kidney. Then you have these tiny nerves in your feet or your hands. Okay, so when you have high levels of sugar, it can create this damage, and it's called peripheral neuropathy, where your bottom of your feet or the fingertips become numb or painful or burning pain. And that progresses to a situation when you have more and more damage to the nervous system, and it could potentially get necrosis, or literally like the tissue is rotting. And that's simply because of this. Sugar rusts out your vascular system. It creates all sorts of oxidation. And you can think about it like an old car that has rust on it. The same thing happens inside your arteries. They start to oxidize, and you start seeing damage. The layer of the inside of the blood vessel is called the endothelium. And the endothelium controls the tone of the blood vessels. It prevents certain things from invading the blood vessel, so it acts as a barrier. And it's highly sensitive to too much sugar. So high levels of glucose mimic inflammatory initiators. So glucose creates inflammation in the arteries. And that's the very beginning stage of a sequence of events that end up as a blockage in your artery. It starts with an oxidation, damage, inflammation. Cholesterol will come in after the fact. So people are focused on the cholesterol, but that is just trying to heal this inflamed, damaged endothelial layer. The oxidation has both direct and indirect effects. I'm not going to get into all the technical things about it, but it creates a lot of serious effects on the inside of the body that you don't really know are happening until you have a problem later in life. It'll also start thickening the inside of the blood vessels, creating stiffness. And then from the high sugar, you develop insulin resistance, which starts to create a decreased blood flow. And a lot of the neurological damage that occurs from having diabetes or high sugar comes from the damaged blood vessels that starve off the nerves. That's really what happens. Another effect that sugar has in the arteries is it creates these called AGEs, advanced glycated end products. And this is a very toxic thing to the arteries and to the rest of your body, to the nervous system, to the brain, to the pancreas. And then another thing that occurs when you have hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, is that you start to develop excessive amounts of sorbitol. Now, sorbitol alcohol, that's what it's called, starts to build up in the cells and starts accumulating fluid and starts to damage the cells in the retina. This leads to cataracts in the retina, which can eventually lead to blindness, and then to the myelin sheath, which destroys the nerve. And that's why diabetics get the peripheral neuropathies in the feet, in the hands, and it starts spreading up this way because it starts to destroy the vascular system and the nervous system. And if you can't bring in oxygen and nutrition to the tissues, it starts to die. You get necrosis. Other than that, you're perfectly fine. Also realize that your body has the ability to make its own sugar if needed. It's called gluconeogenesis. And so does this same thing happen when your body makes sugar? No, it doesn't, because your body also makes antioxidants that protects against the complications of high sugar. And these are the antioxidants that it makes, because with glucose comes oxidation, comes high levels of free radical damage, okay? This is another reason why you should eat food high in antioxidants versus buying some pill that has an antioxidant. You should eat lots of food with antioxidants. You should beef up, no pun intended, your vegetable levels to prevent some of the complications of this high sugar situation. This is why diabetics that are eating healthier, that have additional antioxidant support, have less complications from the diabetes. Another really good thing to take for some of these conditions is benfotiamine. It's a fat-soluble B1 that can definitely protect the peripheral neuropathy from the complications of high sugar, and also the kidney to a certain level, and also the retina. But FYI, to be totally transparent, the research on these two were mainly done in animals, not humans. But I personally used benfotiamine with a lot of clients for peripheral neuropathy and have seen amazing, amazing results. So in summary, learn from the mistakes of others. Learn from this knowledge of what happens to your body when you eat too much sugar. And don't wait for these conditions to happen, because a lot of the symptoms that occur with this don't show up for years until it's to the point where it might be too late.
高血糖对身体的损害是全方位的，由于人的血管遍及全身，所以各大主要器官也有可能受到损害，比如说肝脏、肾脏、心脏、眼睛、大脑和脚部等等。
So I want to discuss how high blood sugar has the potential of destroying your organs and exactly what you should do about it. Okay? It's called glucotoxicity, the toxicity of glucose, which is sugar. So there's a couple things that happen. Number one, you get a massive oxidation effect. Oxidation is similar to rust on your car, okay? So you're getting this breakdown of this material. This can happen in the arteries, in your brain, in your nerves. And then what happens, your body starts healing it with proteins, calcium, cholesterol as a plaque, okay? So you start getting plaquing. That's the Band-Aid that happens after oxidation. And by the way, diabetics that consume more antioxidants from real food can lower the effect of this, okay? Then we have glycation. What is that? Glycation is the effect of heating up and combining glucose with a protein. For example, if you were to eat barbecued ribs, for example, you would get glycation. Glycation has the effect of altering your proteins in the body and making them unusable and creating a lot of damage throughout the tissues. And this can happen anywhere in the body. But there are four main organs that are affected when you have high sugar. Number one is the kidney. Sugar is very damaging to the kidney. Eventually, the person ends up on dialysis because it will literally destroy the kidney. When you have glucose in the urine, for example, because you have so much sugar coming out, your body is trying to get rid of it as a toxic material. But all that glucose is basically destroying the filter. The kidney is the filter that filters blood and it ends up as urine. And then you can't filter anymore, and then you actually need dialysis. Okay, number two, the eyes. Number one, it'll affect the tiny blood vessels in the back of the eye that feed the retina, okay, which is a nerve that goes right into your brain. So the retina, it has optical tissue, and it's an extension of your brain sticking out there. And there's all these little blood vessels that it needs to feed that nerve tissue. Well, high sugar destroys the blood vessels, which then destroy the nerves. And that's why the end product of having diabetes, you end up going blind. Okay, so it affects the retina. It affects the pressure in the eye as glaucoma. It affects the lens as cataracts. And maybe you have personal experience when your blood sugars are even low because the insulin is high, pushing them down. Sometimes like you're blurry, you can't see as well. Next one is the vascular system. Okay, I'm talking about the blood vessels to the heart, to other parts of the tissue. The vascular system becomes stiff and you get oxidation within the wall of the arteries. And that's where you see the plaque. That's where you see the clots that form that can eventually turn into a stroke. But it's the glucotoxicity that destroys the vascular system. And this is why diabetics end up with so many heart problems. So we have the effect of the arteries directly. We have the muscle. And we also have the electrical system of the heart. So they have arrhythmias. Okay, next one is the nerves, okay, and the brain. I'm considering this as one, but the nerves are affected. Primarily the blood vessels or the capillaries that feed the nerves, okay, starting off in the peripheral nerves in your fingertips and your toes, okay, on the bottom of the feet. You'll start feeling tingling, numbness, burning, maybe just pain, and then just complete, you can't feel it anymore. what's happening is you're destroying the nerves. It can affect the autonomic nervous system and create a condition called gastroparesis, which is basically you eat food and it doesn't digest that fast. It's very slow going through the digestive tract. And also the valves on top of the stomach and even the bottom of the stomach is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Okay, that's part of the nervous system that can get destroyed. Then we have this thing called the brain gets destroyed. The vascular system that goes in the brain, the oxygen shuts down. Your brain actually shrinks when you have high sugar. You destroy the neurons. It's called diabetes type 3. And then there goes the memory, there goes the learning, there goes the cognition. But it's really the toxic effect of this glucose that actually starts the whole cycle.
糖的代谢过程是一个氧化过程，需要消耗大量的氧气，所以很多患有慢性疾病的人，同时也存在缺氧的问题，从而引发呼吸困难、认知下降、睡眠困难等问题。由于糖的代谢是氧化过程，抗氧化剂对于改善胰岛素抵抗、缓解慢性疾病是有很大帮助的。但是，如果不彻底解决饮食的问题，慢性疾病仍然不可能从根本上得到治愈。综合以上的信息，我们不难得知，慢性疾病的关键是代谢综合征，代谢综合征的关键是胰岛素的问题，胰岛素的关键就是血糖的问题，而血糖的问题就是饮食的问题。所以，以高碳水化合物为主的饮食真的健康吗？答案应该不难得知。事实上，由于低碳饮食对改善健康起着至关重要的作用，越来越多的人，包括医学界和营养学界的顶级专家们，也开始重视和传播低碳饮食了。
都2020年了，你还在质疑少吃主食的低碳生酮饮食吗？走，今天我带你去看一下2020年的低碳医学大会。
2019年3月16号召开了第一届低碳医学大会，成立了低碳医学联盟。今年11月15号召开了第2届低碳医学大会。我们来看一下这一届的专家，有哈佛教授入选中科院100人计划的徐希平教授，有中国疾控中心营养与健康研究所所长丁刚强教授，还有贺军孙教授等国内顶尖的营养专家。低碳医学能得到国家疾控中心领导的重视，这个真的太重要了。当然了，还有我们低碳医学大会的主席石汉平教授、周华博士等等很多专家。今天我们要重点介绍一下2个老朋友。杨乃龙教授说啊，在低碳生酮界，南有英俊，北有杨乃龙，现场响出了雷鸣般的掌声。英俊教授的主题是胆固醇和 LDL 是敌还是友，这个真的太颠覆了。我以后会分享我相信很多抖音的传统的医生和博士会吐血了。胆固醇低的人死亡风险会更高，胆固醇没有问题，甚至 LDL 都是没问题的。他汀类的药物很坑人。杨乃龙教授的演讲也非常生动，原始人比我们现代人更健康，吃藜麦，糖尿病人的血糖飙升，久久不能下来。看到这里，你还要相信吃藜麦可以变瘦吗？演讲中有多次提到低碳生酮让身体获益，你少吃一点碳水不行吗？杨教授真的跟我一样，一直在苦口婆心的劝告大家少吃一点碳水。当然了，有些专家还是很谨慎的，他们不想得罪人。对了，这次我也收到邀请，在线上做了一个视频的演讲，最近我会分享给大家。非常感谢大家支持低碳饮食。寿龙做低碳饮食的科普做了4年了，在这里我真的非常感谢所有能站出来支持低碳饮食的专家，感谢你们能站出来去挽救中国的慢性病肥胖症患者，谢谢。在这一次大会上，我见到了很多我的读者朋友，非常感谢大家对寿龙的信任、支持和鼓励，你们给我的一些反馈真的让我感觉特别欣慰。这是我们中国低碳人的家庭大聚会，下一次低碳医学大会我们再见，谢谢大家。
毫无疑问，低碳饮食比传统的饮食更健康。那么，哪些食物更容易导致血糖上升？哪些食物更不容易导致血糖上升？哪些食物是低碳食物？ 哪些食物是高碳食物？我们身边的食物越来越多，应该如何选择呢？关于这些话题，我们下次再聊。今天的内容就到这里，谢谢大家的观看，我们下次再见。